for your opening statement. General Taylor, in last year's Homeland Threat Assessment, DHS stated that domestic violent extremism, specifically white supremacist extremists, are the most persistent and lethal homeland security threat. That is a finding that both myself and Ranking Member Portman have been saying for some time now. And it's clear that this threat is real, and it's clear that we need to combat it. So my question to you is, beyond establishing the domestic terrorism branch, which is certainly, I think we all agree, a step in the right direction, are there other changes to INA's organization or authorities that you believe would help them address this threat?
It's my view that INA has the requisite authorities to address this threat if it prioritizes that threat. And in the last administration, it's my understanding that domestic terrorism was not considered a priority for INA. In fact, that the INA leadership kind of deferred to the FBI on that. So I think the authority exists. It's a focus on what the outcome is INA is trying to achieve and how they do that consistent with privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties going forward.
So your testimony is that it just was not prioritized. They have the authorities to do it. Perhaps we drill down on that a little bit, if we could, General. What do you see as the added value that INA provides to the broader federal intelligence community and partners in combating this? What is the specific value that they could bring if sufficiently prioritized?
Yeah, much of the work against violent extremists occurs in the 18,000 police departments across our country. Local law enforcement confronts these individuals, investigates these folks because they're committing acts in communities that those officers are sworn to protect. It's my view that through the fusion centers, INA and its intelligence officers can bring better perspective to the national level of what these 18,000 police organizations are seeing trend-wise and tactics, techniques, and procedure-wise in their communities. The FBI plays an extraordinarily important role in its JTTF, but as Director Wray has testified, there needs to be a definitive act of violence for the FBI to get involved. And I think that's the gap that INA can help cover with its collection and production in the field.
Very good. Ms. Patel, the next question is for you. As INA continues to attempt to better understand and analyze the real threat posed by domestic terrorism, could you share with the committee some of the concerns that communities of color in particular are facing with this effort to combat domestic terrorism?
Sure. Thank you for that question. So for communities of color, when you have broad open intelligence gathering, authorities and programs, there is a risk that they will be the targets of those programs. And we've seen this sort of systematically over the last 2 decades, where Muslim Americans have been targeted for surveillance, often on the basis of nothing other than their religion. We've seen this with African American communities being targeted. We've seen the Black Lives Matter movement being targeted. And this is, a pretty well-known phenomenon in the United States. So I think the overall concern is that domestic terrorism is discussed sort of almost as a stand-in for white supremacist violence, but covers a much broader range of issues, as we've seen from DHS and FBI documents. So the concern is that these kinds of broad open surveillance programs will actually be used to target communities of color, as has been the case in the past.
Very good. General Taylor, last year you authored an op-ed noting your significant concern with INA's reportedly problematic intelligence operations in Portland and the publishing of intelligence on journalists specifically. More recently, this committee has found that INA warned generally about the potential for election-related violence, but failed to issue a warning specific to the risk facing the Capitol on January 6th. Yeah, in both examples, INA clearly did not serve its customers or the American people in that respect. So my question to you is, in your opinion, what are the key reasons for INA's failures over this past year?
It's hard for me, Senator, to kind of focus in on the key reasons for failure because I wasn't in the decision cycle. But I think organizations like INA fail to meet their mission if they're not organized in a way that ensures consistency of production, consistency of focus. And it's my understanding that those processes and procedures that at least existed when I was there were no longer being used from an execution point of view. So I think solid leadership and solid management will save the day. By the way, I'm a product of the Church Commission and the follow-on from COINTELPRO. I've been on the Privacy and Civil Liberties Commission for President Bush. This is privacy and civil rights and civil liberties are fundamental to how we should think about domestic intelligence, and for whatever reason, that was not the case during the last year.
So when you talk about stability and continuity, I would assume the fact that we've had a lack of stability when it comes to INA leadership over the years, that has contributed to the problem that you see?
I do. As you mentioned in your opening statement, 12 different INA leaders over 19 years really does not give you a lot of confidence about continuity. And during my tenure, as has been my experience in the military, is when you take over an organization, you try to organize it to focus on the mission. Much of what we put in place was dismantled after we left office in 2017.
Thank you, General. Ranking Member Portman, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just start, if I could, with General Taylor and Ms. Cogswell. A fundamental question here. Both of you have a broad national security background, including having at one time had the role of managing INA. Do we need INA at DHS? Yes or no?
Yes.
Agree as well.
Okay. I think there's some fundamental rethinking going on right now, and I think it's important, in my view, that we have this intelligence gathering capability, particularly, as both of you commented on, because our state and local and tribal and private sector coordination and communication goes through INA. Nobody else has that responsibility. Is that correct?
That's correct.
One of my big concerns has been the growth of these so-called TCO, the transnational criminal organizations. They're responsible for a lot of criminal activity, as you know, but one that is particularly